Oh, you're kissing me? Oh, biscuits. Hi, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. This is Tristan, he's a Corgi, and we're here for episode 501 of Conversations with a Corgi. And it's been a bit of a rough week in terms of trying to do this in the morning anyway. And there's a week coming up when I am at my educator job 5 days in a row, which means no conversations with a Corgi. And it's near a holiday, so it'll be confusing. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and I want to talk about something really important that a client came yesterday for help with, and I think it's a common problem, and people have continued to struggle with it. Every time I do talks at these pet expos, this has been a concern for a lot of people, and that is dogs that pull on the leash. Now, as people get retired and maybe not in the best of health, maybe they've got a knee or a hip or a back or whatever, shoulder that is not the best. It's not what it was when they were 20, and they love dogs and they want to have a dog when they're older. So very commonly, people will go to a shelter or downsize their breeds and get like a 30-pound dog instead of like a 65, 75-pound dog. But a 30-pound dog, or even 35, pulling at the end of your leash can really cause you a lot of problems in your own body as well as in the dog's body. Number 1 and 2 of which are patella problems back here in the stifle and low back problems in the dog. When Tristan is pulling, for instance, if someone's shooting a gun in the neighborhood, he makes a wide stance behind like this, points his toes out to the side, sits down like a husky or actually a Malamute pulling a sled, and then his hocks are really bent and he's like this, pulling to try to get home faster because he's scared of the gun. So sadly, I have a guy in the neighborhood that shoots a little bit too often and not at the right things. So anyway, I know what it's like to have a really pulley dog, and Tristan weighs about 20 pounds, and having to walk maybe a quarter of a mile with him in that position is really hard on my own body. I have to really thank God for teaching yoga and all the other things I do, because I have to be really aware of keeping my body in equal balance, switching the leash from side to side, not leaning against him, asking him to sit and relax, and doing T-touch on him so that I'm not being yanked. But I can imagine for some of the people I know who are retired, there's a great place or two to walk around here where it's about a mile, and to have a dog pulling on you for an entire mile while he's chasing squirrels and smells and looking at other dogs and people and kids or running from noises, it's not a fun time to take a walk with your dog, which many people here have said is the best part of their day, is when they're walking their dog. And certainly I really appreciate my dog walks every day. I love the time I spend with my dog walking, especially since I don't have horses to ride anymore. The dog walking is even more important to me, right, Tris? And you like it. So all the dogs seem to like it. So this little guy came to me. He's a 9-month-old Labradoodle puppy, really cute guy, spotted. And I worked with him when he was a little wee puppy on just some basic behavior things. And this is something that people don't always connect with a Tellington T-Touch practitioner. They think, oh, those people do body work and help dogs with physical problems. They don't always think T-Touch, great way to work with a puppy, but it is. There are so many things that T-Touch can teach you about being with your dog and about making your dog comfortable that can help your puppy just breeze through some of those difficult stages and be a great partner for you for the rest of his and your life. So, if only. So, anyway, this little fella's people have been to me numerous times with some of their past dogs who had pretty profound physical problems that led to behavior problems. And he's a little bigger dog than they've had in the past, and he's really cute. So his problem was that his person who walks him primarily is mom, and she's a little slimmer and a little older and a little less strong in some ways. But what mom does is she teaches piano. This is a great thing for me as a T-Touch practitioner because she has a lot of dexterity in her hands and she gets it. When I say use the smallest signal possible, she knows how to play pianissimo on that piano and barely strike the key, and she knows when she's playing forte on some, Beethoven piece. So she actually was an ideal student, and she made a lot of progress with her dog, which I don't always see in one session. It was a pretty long session, but still, I had plenty of time. We set up a good confidence course in the yard. I had some hula hoops, a piece of plywood to walk on, a labyrinth of course, a spiral, and some cones to walk around, and some poles to walk over, and also a little fan to walk over. So the first thing we do when we're trying to help a dog who's pulling on the leash is get a T-Touch harness. Now, this guy's a little bit old. A puppy, typically I recommend using a step-in harness, which is like a figure 8 that goes around their shoulders, because they're growing so fast, and this guy may top out pretty close to the weight he's at. And the harness he got when he was a teeny puppy still fits him, and now it's all the way out instead of all the way in. So he's doing okay with the T-Touch harness, but if you've got a bigger breed and they grow fast, I really recommend getting the step-in harnesses until you're at a point where they can get a T-Touch harness, unless you have a lot of money and you want to buy a couple harnesses. So this harness, as you can see on Tristan, I hope, is an H harness. It has a piece that comes around the front, a piece that comes around here, a top piece here, and another one that goes between their chests. In the front, it's V-shaped like this, so that the pressure on the harness is on the bone, not up on the soft tissues of the neck. That's really important to help your dog stop pulling. It also has 2 attachments on the top here towards the back and another one near the front. And there is a loop on the front, and then further down there's another piece where you could also attach a leash, but we hardly ever use that one. We use the loops. So the reason we love this harness, not only does it fit the dog well and not strangle them or hurt them or get too close to their elbows or pull them off balance. That's the most important thing. A dog that's pulling is a dog that's out of balance. The most important thing is to keep them in physical balance, because then they'll be in emotional balance. So we use a 2-snapped leash like this. It's a T-Touch leash. There are a few different types of these days. This is an older one that didn't come with a slidey handle, and it has 2 different size snaps. The newer ones have only this size snap, depending if you get a bigger dog size, then or bigger snaps, obviously. So I like to put the little snap for my dog on the front piece here if he starts to be pulling, and then I hook it on the 2 on the top and the back. You can also hook it here. I like these 2 because I have a long dog, and the further back I put this, the more I can get over his center of gravity, which is going to get him in better balance. So if I were to be walking him from my seated position, I would want this front one coming under him towards me, as opposed to like this, which is easier for you to see. So depending on which side of the dog you're on, the front piece has to go towards where you are. And then you just keep this in 2 hands. Now, it does come with a sliding handle these days so that you can walk, if you have a lot to carry, with just the dog on the handle. But when you're trying to help your dog stop pulling, you need the leash like this. So what we did with this guy, we let him run around the yard and sniff, because he's a Labrador half, and boy, he's got a nose. So he sniffed everywhere, he peed around, he had a good time, and she's had trouble getting him to come back. Very, very good dog person. She knows to call him, look at him, turn away, and start to walk, so that he's like, oh my God, she's leaving, I better go with her, and then gives him a treat when he comes. And she does this 2 or 3 times. Oh, Biscuit's her treat. So that he knows to come when she calls him. Now, she's a little frustrated because he's at that point in adolescence where they look at you a minute like, does she really want me? This thing over here smells really good. I don't know. And some terrier breeds might stay like that for a longer time than like this Labradoodle, because the poodle part's saying, go to your person. So she's got that under control. And I told her if he's consistently not coming smartly enough for her, to use better treats, and then he will come. So she's got, those little apron things you get at the hardware store that's just like, a square with a couple pockets in it. That's what she uses around her waist, with a lot of different kinds of treats in different parts of it. So she's got plenty of resources there, and she's super good at the timing of giving treats because her dog school lady was a clicker person, and so she got really used to treating and rewarding and clicking. So excellent. All these are excellent things for this woman to have already at her grasp for helping this dog. So I put the dog in the harness with the 2 points of attachment, and then we put him in the labyrinth. The labyrinth is absolutely critical. The labyrinth engages both sides of the brain, the right and left hemisphere, equally in all 4 brain waves that we've measured: alpha, beta, theta, and delta. Now, some of those brain waves are for thinking, some are for relaxation, and you need some of the relaxation brain waves to be engaged in order to get learning and retention of memory and of what you're teaching. So you can't just think that this makes your dog think, because it also helps keep him relaxed. Those are the 2 things you need, thinking and relaxation. Tristan says, "Why are you pulling on me?" In order to help your dog stop pulling on the leash, because he just didn't know. And one of the things that happens with leash pulling dogs is they pull, you pull back, they pull, you pull back, and they're in this tug of war with you. The other option is that people hold the leash really tight and lean back, which makes the dog pull into them, and then they're already pulling and they see a squirrel and they pull even more, and then everybody's off balance. It's not a good situation. So I put the double-ended leash on the little guy, and he has a beautiful green harness he looks cute in, and a leash. And so I put him in there, and I got him to go through first, just going slowly because he was sniffing and looking around and really unfocused. And just around the first turn in the labyrinth, which is a little maze with right angle turns in the corner, sort of like U's, that first corner, you could see him shift, kept his head up. He started to look at me, asked me what we were going to be doing. I took him through maybe 3 or 4 times with a little break in between. Then we let him off the leash again, and then brought him back, and then his person took him through the labyrinth. And what the person did so well was be able to give him just a little signal on the front thing here to say, "Come on, let's go forward," and then a little signal here to say, "Wait," and then he's got a pretty good sit still as an adolescent. And so I had her have him sit quite a few times in order to get his attention and to keep focusing on that. Now, one thing I've learned from doing rally with my dog, his heeling and his leash pulling are way less pulling and much better heeling since I've been doing rally, because in rally, the dog is heeling all the time and doing a variety of tasks out of heeling within 2 feet of you. You know, down, sit, you walk around, he walks around, both of you spin around each other, you know, make different serpentines, etc. So, and she has a rally class that she could go to, and I highly suggested she give that a shot. Hi, Shawnee and Jim and James. Gosh, it must be midnight where you are, Shawnee. Anyway, so I suggested she try rally, but in the meantime, the dog has a few tricks. So when we were in the labyrinth, we were asking him to sit. One time we asked him to down. That was not the best thing because he does have a big nose thing going on, and his down is not great. And also, I noticed when he was trotting around loose in the yard, he's starting to get a little problem with his right patella, common in this breed, and some other things going on that may cause that problem in him. Now, the pulling is not helping it, and I told her we need to teach him how to back up, and she was familiar with that because she has knee problems herself and has had to do backing up to help herself. So I gave her some tools to teach him that. So after she was done the labyrinth once, she really had it down, how to just ask him to rebalance gently from this leash. The other thing she did beautifully, which is so hard for people to learn, we have what we call in T-Touch a sleeping snap. See how that snap is relaxed? That's a sleeping snap. A lot of people with pulling dogs have the snap up and they're pulling against the dog continuously. So being able to give the signal, wait, and then release the snap, that is hard for people to learn. She did this beautifully from the start. I mean, I really am impressed with how quickly she learned this. It's not always that way. Certainly, luckily he's only 30 pounds. With a bigger dog, it's even harder for people to just release the leash and trust that they'll be with you. Of course, when you've got the 2 handles, one in each hand, you know he's not going to run too far because one hand's going to get him. So usually people are able to release at least one snap. So once she got that down and we went through the labyrinth, then we were able to start him on the confidence course a little bit and then spread the elements out more and more so that he had to focus for longer periods of time. Where I put the plywood down, which is about a 3x3 square, it just happened to be on a bit of a hilliness. So we got him on that, and he walked right over it, and she thought everything was fine. I explained, no, we need to sit on it and let him really understand. She has a ladder at home she's been walking him through. That's an excellent thing to do to help a dog not pull, because they have to really worry about where their feet are going and focus. And that's one of our most important things that we do with our elements in our confidence course. I don't happen to have a ladder. I have a lot of ladders, but not the right kind to do that with. And certainly not unless you're a huge dog. So anyway, we got him on the plywood, and she shifted her weight gently, and he started to understand. He was kind of surfing there. We gave him some more treats and took him off and on a few times, and he was still slightly nervous on the second and third pass, but by the end of our time out there, he was fine with it, and even kind of stepped on it himself to make it rock, because I think he liked it, as my boy does. And she had wanted to put him, I have a seesaw, a teeter, which we use in agility, and she had thought that she could do that with him, and I said, oh, not yet. We don't want to scare him. Let's start with the board on the ground and work our way up to that. Plus the teeter slaps down and scares them, and we don't want to do that with him, especially today when we're working on these other things. So he walked over some hula hoops, he walked over some poles, he did some figure eights, and I gave her some suggestions, like when he starts to go after a squirrel, to change direction herself, walk in a square, walk in a circle, walk in a triangle, walk in a serpentine. And, as a musician, this right brain stuff was really, she got it immediately. So after that, we took him out front, and I had her just walk him on the street where there's much more distractions, up and down to a mailbox. And I pointed out one of the things that we need to do when we have dogs like this is really focus on where we're going. Keep our intention clear. Walk to that mailbox, walk to the next mailbox, walk 3 driveways up, walk to that tree, then turn around, and then come back and do the same thing in your mind. You don't even have to tell your dog, we're walking to that mailbox. Just keep your focus on a destination, even if you're going on a 4-mile walk. So we did some little short ones up and down the street, and what she did that was so beautiful, when cars were coming, which was like twice, she got him to sit and focus on her and pay attention to her and wait, and then circle and sit again, so that it was clear, because she didn't want him to get squirrely when a car was going by. So we have a neighbor across the street with a circular driveway. She walked around there just to give him a new experience, came back, and I would not have done this if he had not done so beautifully, but I felt like he was ready for the big distraction of the Corgi. So I went to get Tristan, and in the past, Tristan would sometimes bark at a strange dog, but now he's gotten so good that unless they're 3 feet away from him, he doesn't bark at them. So I knew that would not provoke this other dog, and I had him on a long leash so he could kind of misbehave and poo around and sniff things and, not be very controlled, but, still controlled. So, and boy, immediately the little guy Murphy was like, oh, what's that over there? Oh, I want to see that dog. And his person did a beautiful job of refocusing him, circling him, going around the circular driveway. And it got to the point, I had brought poles out front to set up a labyrinth in my driveway if we needed help, but he did not need it. She was very, very good with the treats and the signals with the 2 hands on the leash. And when we were done, we were able to walk Tristan maybe 3 feet, 4 feet away from him, back and forth and around him, and come behind him, talking and saying, I'm coming behind you with a dog. And he was perfect. I'm so proud of him and her. They did a beautiful job yesterday. She has lots of tools to work with when she goes home now. We talked about different places in the area where she can walk her dog to practice this, where it won't be overwhelming. There's a park with a nice wide path, lots of flat fields, and a wide, like 3-lane road that goes around it, where there's lots of places to walk to get away from another dog or people or car that's coming, if you're not there at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. She thought it might be too crowded, and I said, no, go in the morning around 10:30 or 1. There's like nobody in there except for one person you can see a mile away, and then you can manage your dog. So she's going to try that place. And there's another place where ultimately it's a great place to let your dog run free off the leash. But where she parks to go to that trail, she's got a good, 1/4 of a mile, 1/5 of a mile, where she can put him on his long leash and let him run around and sniff things and kind of get some of his oats out before she gets up to the actual hiking path. And it's right by the river. It's a beautiful path. And then you can see again a dog and a person coming from really far away. And the path is wide and it's just grass on both sides, but it's a dike, so it's like steep like this. So that's another place she's going to try to bring him so that she can practice a lot of what she's learned and help him stay in his body, stay balanced, and listen to her when they're out there in the world so that he doesn't run off and chase things. So it went really well, and these are all things that you can do with your own dog. If you've got a dog that pulls, you want to keep him in balance in his body and keep yourself in balance. You can't do this without a T-Touch harness. I've tried other harnesses when I've been in a clinic, and that's what they have, and we don't have a harness to fit him. It is so hard. You got to be a really experienced practitioner like me who's ridden a lot of horses, because all this comes from riding horses, to be able to manage what we do without this kind of harness. Now we have things that we did before we had these harnesses. For instance, you can go back on the T-Touch videos and see this. We have a way that we put the leash between the front legs and attach it to the collar or the harness here. So you have these two pieces, and now I can balance his chest and say, come back into your body, don't pull. And then again, the sleeping snap. There's also a way we do this with a lot in the shelters. You just put it under their chest, around their neck, and then you can balance them this way too. So these are called the balance leash and the super balance leash. If you want to go back and look at them, they're like episode 60 and Conversations with a Corgi on YouTube. And this can help. Again, watch Tristan. I'm rocking him back just by a little signal on the front of the harness, and he's rebalancing his little front piggies. Right, honey? And that's what we do when we don't have a T-Touch harness. But these harnesses, so worth the money, and they last forever, and they wash well, and they come in pretty colors, and I love them. So if you have any more questions about leash pulling dogs, write them here, and we will talk more about this, because there's tons of T-Touch things that can help leash pulling dogs. I mean, a lot of us, that's what we do. And the labyrinth is an important tool, and the harness is an important tool, and you really can use any kind of leash. It's just easier with the leashes that we make, but any kind of leash, even a rope, will work. So those are a few things that we did yesterday to help that one dog. So if you have any questions, let me know. I am going to try to be back tomorrow for another episode of Conversations with a Corgi. I've got a lot of painting going on here tomorrow outside, so I might do this earlier. I think the painter guy's coming at like 9-ish. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But thanks for joining us today. Tristan has a little flower on his T-Touch harness. They don't come with this. This was an add-on to make him cuter. Are you already cute? You want to see? You're a Corgi. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great day. Oh, somebody called you gorgeous.